with the nursing team, obviously you can't have a nurse 24 hours a day. Obviously there has to be changes and people require holidays and breaks to be at their best. But definitely there were people who we saw frequently who you would start to build a bit of a bond with. And then there were people who you would see very infrequently. And there were some people who you would love to have your baby. You know, oh my gosh, that is such a relief. And now I can go home and I can just chill. I know I can come back and I can call in and I'll get a full report and all of those sorts of pieces that make a huge difference to your state of mind. And then there were others where you would just panic. You know, oh my gosh, please can that not be the case? And you would just want to stay in the unit next to the incubator for the whole night.
There's a lot of staff on the unit, and as a member of staff on the unit, it takes a long time for us to meet all the members of staff. And even now, if you have a certain time off and you come back, there can be several members of staff that are new and you've never met before. So how families deal with that is just another thing that they have to deal with. And we're all human and personalities will clash and they will prefer some staff to others just because they get on better with those staff, or that staff may have had more involvement with them than other staff. But yeah, I think it's difficult for them to be with certain members of staff for a long period of time and then have somebody different.
There was one day, lots and lots of DSATs, and the night was rolling around. I'd been unwell. Out of the blue, I'd started bleeding again, so I wasn't on the ward as much as I would have been ordinarily. A nurse that we hadn't seen before was going to be watching her, Rafe that night. And I just said to her, "Can you just watch my boy? There's something going on with him." And she didn't take too kindly to that. Hands on her hips, "You don't tell me what to do. I've been doing my job for 15 years or whatever." So I took a breath and I blamed my child. And I said, "It's not you, it's him. He's had a funny day today. Can you just watch him, please?" So she went off again and she was shouting again. Not shouting, just an aggressive raised tone and voice. So again I said, just watch him for me, please. And I left. So happens I got admitted onto the maternity ward of the hospital. I bled a lot and it started to have effects on me. And even while she was speaking to me, there was another nurse in the room who kind of stopped and looked because it was that unusual. So we were down on the maternity unit, didn't really get to see Rafe that night. And the next thing was a phone call to the room we were in to say, "We're trying to resuscitate Rafe and we can't. You need to come round." And one thing I'm grateful for is the young Reg who was working on Rafe, trying to resuscitate him, came over while I was just coming round, while I was lying on the floor in the ward, just coming round, and he put his hand on my ankle and he said, "I'm so sorry." And that was important. I hold on to that. You know, it wasn't blasé to him, it wasn't another one gone. So, you know, we had the terrible situation with the nurse the night before, and then this lovely, lovely registrar who, in 2 words, didn't make it better, but just helped a little bit.
Yes, we understand that Keane was their main priority, but next priority should have been to contact Mum, not to leave it until Mum had contacted the ward. They should have contacted Mum. It should be like a type of a checklist. If a baby's dying, run through that checklist.
He'd been so poorly during the night, and I was really annoyed that they hadn't come to the room and said, you know, "Alex is really deteriorating, come and, you know, do you want to come and sit with him?" Because I would have sat there all night long. If I knew that was the last time I was going to see him, I wouldn't have been away from him if I'd had the choice.
A nurse, it wasn't the breastfeeding nurse, but a nurse was with us and she just said, she kind of left me to it. And then she said, oh, you're a natural, just keep going. And she was calm and supportive. And more than anything, all I wanted to do was breastfeed this child. I'd been expressing milk but for about 4 or 5 months at this stage. And I just wanted to be able to have that experience of breastfeeding Harrison. And without these nurses, it just wouldn't have happened. So massive thumbs up to them for that.